Hi, welcome to the Dynamic Duel Podcast, a weekly show where we review superhero films and debate the superiority between Marvel and DC by comparing their characters in stat-based battle simulations. I'm Marvelous Joe.
And I'm his twin brother, Johnny DC.
And in our official countdown to our 100th episode, this is our 93rd episode. Only 7 more weeks to go before the big 100, an event that we are probably overhyping. It will likely disappoint many people, but will also be exciting for many people. So
I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited.
Look forward to that milestone event episode. It's going to be awesome. In this 93rd episode, we will be reviewing the Constantine City of Demons movie. It's an animated film that was released this past week by DC. It's super rated R.
It's probably the most rated R film we've ever reviewed.
And I don't say that lightly because we reviewed Suicide Squad Hell to Pay. That was pretty rated R.
And like the Deadpool films as well, you know?
Yeah. This movie, it goes on the edge of what's legally allowed to be showed in animation, I think.
So. Yeah, I think so. It's a hard watch for sure. That being said,
it's a great Halloween film.
It's good.
Yeah, it's a good story. Usually every year I get together with my friends and we watch scary movies. As you know, Jonathan, because you were actually invited this time, even though you don't usually watch scary movies. But we got together, we included Constantine City of Demons as part of this like horror movie marathon. And I have to actually say, of the movies we watched, Constantine City of Demons was the best horror film that we saw that day.
And I was super relieved by that, honestly, because I was afraid it was not going to be that good. But it surprisingly was.
Yeah, I kind of was like, okay, we'll watch this DC animated movie. That's just going to be okay. But I was surprised to find that it was quite a solid movie.
Yeah.
So we'll discuss that further later on this episode. But before that, we're going to go into the comic book movie news that has been released over this past week, including the news that James Gunn was hired to write and possibly direct a Suicide Squad sequel by DC.
Yep.
That's crazy. Right. We'll talk about it. Iron Fist on Netflix was canceled, unfortunately. We'll talk about that as well. And we also got our first look at Ruby Rose as Batwoman.
Yeah.
And finally, Jonathan wants to give his first impressions of the Titans television show, the first pilot episode.
Yeah, it debuted last week.
Oh, yeah, on DC Universe. Before we get into the news, I want to give a quick shout out to FlashFan1776 for leaving a review for us on iTunes. We've really been pushing the requests for iTunes ratings and reviews over the past month because we have a goal in mind to get 200 ratings on iTunes so that we could become official Rotten Tomatoes reviewers.
Yeah, Rotten Tomatoes recently laxed, or I guess I should say expanded, the requirements to get critics' reviews up on their site, and they're including podcasts now. All we need to meet all of the requirements now is just 200 iTunes reviews. We're kind of far away.
We're at 37. We can make it.
But every week we get closer. Thanks to you guys. And thanks again to FlashFan1776 for helping us get there.
And everyone else who rated us. It's super appreciated. Yeah. On Patreon this Thursday, you'll get access to the secret project that Jonathan and I have been working on over the month of September, on which we were on hiatus. And
for reals this time, though.
We kind of goofed last week because one of the audio files that we had was corrupted, so we're going to have to actually re-record it and then get it up there on Thursday. But yeah, if you're a patron of ours, look forward to that on the 18th of October. If you're not a patron, you can join us by visiting patreon.com/dynamicduel and get access to all that weekly bonus content.
Yeah, it's only $2 a month, and you get access to the whole back catalog, so yeah, it's not a bad deal. You'll also notice if you go to our Patreon page that we have a goal to reach 25 patrons, at which point we will be mailing out the no prize illustrations that we do for our no prize awards.
Right.
And speaking of no prizes,
it's no prize time. A no prize is an award Marvel used to give out up until the 90s to fans. Our version, the Dynamic Duel No Prize, is a digital JPEG award that we post on social media that Jonathan personally draws for those who we feel gave the best answer to our question of the week.
Yeah, last week's question was, of the 4 major films opening in the same time frame as Aquaman, including Bumblebee, Mary Poppins Returns, Holmes & Watson, and The Deadpool Before Christmas, tell us why you think Aquaman has the best shot at winning the weekend box office, or why not? And I'm kind of disappointed.
Not many people said Aquaman.
Yeah, only one person did out of all of the written answers that we received.
Yeah. So we'll give a shout out to Caleb Albers. You get honorable mention. Caleb's answer was Mary Poppins. He thinks Mary Poppins is going to win that weekend because every parent is going to take their kids.
Yeah, and Ken Johnson also gave the answer Mary Poppins because he says there is too much nostalgia for that movie.
And Twitter user Laranuki also gave the answer Mary Poppins because Disney.
And that's a very valid reason.
It is a very valid reason. If you think about it...
And I'm being like totally sincere when I say that.
Brands go a long way for the movie-going audience.
Yeah.
I would say that the Disney brand itself, with these remakes of their classic films or sequels or what have you, that's actually stronger than the DC Justice League universe.
Yeah.
So Laranuki has a valid point with just that simple answer because Disney.
Yeah. And the last honorable mention goes to Joel Seagrave, who gave the answer Bumblebee, because all the hype for that film will edge it over the competition.
I also like his answer because he called Aquaman Aqua Bro and Mary Poppins Mary Poopins. That was brilliant. I loved it. Good job.
But the winner goes to Jacob Bell for his answer of Aquaman. Yes, the correct answer was Aquaman. Come on. Really? Come on.
No bias here.
Yeah. He said Aquaman because Arthur was one of the best things about Justice League. And the trailers are showing a cinematic world unlike anything since Avatar. People have seen movies like Transformers and Mary Poppins, and no one's seen this kind of superhero movie before, it looks like. Which I think makes a lot of sense. It's sort of the law of diminishing returns for me. Mm-hmm. Like, people have seen the Mary Poppins film. People have seen the Transformers films. This is the first time Aquaman is going to be in a film that's like this.
Unless people equate it with the previous entries in the DC cinematic universe.
I think it's really hard to do that if you've seen the trailers. I really hope people are watching these trailers because it looks really different.
I mean, there is something to be said for spectacle as well. Jacob was comparing it to Avatar here, and a reason why Avatar is the highest grossing movie of all time was because of that spectacle. I mean, the story wasn't that great, honestly. Aquaman hopefully has both going for it.
Yeah, we'll see. Plus, it's Jason Momoa, who I think women also are pretty attracted to and may want to go see.
Are they, though?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess.
Have you...
People say I look like him sometimes.
You think you look like Jason Momoa?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Yeah, no. Anyway, congrats again to Jacob Bell for winning this week's No Prize. If you want to win a No Prize, go ahead and stay tuned to later on this episode, at which point we will be asking another question of the week. And with that out of the way,
onto the news. Okay, big news. James Gunn is going to write the next Suicide Squad film, which is just fantastic, in my opinion. I know there's a lot
of irony.
Yeah, absolutely. I know a lot of people don't like that this is happening, but I think it's great. Considering the fact that the first Suicide Squad film took inspiration from James Gunn's first Guardians of the Galaxy film.
Yeah.
I think that was supposed to be DC's answer to that film. This is fantastic news.
Yeah, I think the people that have a problem with this news are also the people that have a problem with James Gunn himself. And we gave our thoughts on James Gunn, back when this whole debacle was happening a few months ago. And I'm excited. I hate to lose James Gunn from Marvel, but if he's going to go anywhere, if he's going to tackle any other superhero project, this is probably the ideal project for him.
Yeah, it seems to be right up his alley.
Right.
You're working with obscure characters that kind of lend themselves a little bit towards
dark humor.
Dark humor, yeah, exactly.
Right.
Honestly, I just really like this news because I feel like it's sticking it to the Marvel fans, and I just love that.
No, I mean, as a Marvel fan, again, I don't really feel like it's sticking to me so much.
Yeah, it is.
Is it?
Don't lie.
Oh, damn. Okay. Yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, none of this would have ever happened, and James Gunn would be getting ready to shoot Guardians of the Galaxy 3 right now. Yeah. So, in that regard, it is a bummer. But if we get a better Suicide Squad film out of it, too,
yeah,
and we're using James Gunn's script on Guardians 3, as long as they get the right director for this, it might be best case scenario as far as both Marvel and DC are concerned.
And especially if James Gunn gets the opportunity to direct the Suicide Squad film, because right now he's just signed on to write it.
Right.
And apparently it's going to be a brand new take on the property. Okay. So, yeah, it's not going to be a direct sequel. It's going to sort of be I guess, a soft reboot. We have no idea what characters he's using or if he's going to be using the same cast. I could pretty much guarantee you, though, that Jared Leto is not going to return as the Joker.
Right. Because on social media, James Gunn has always kind of had an animosity toward Jared Leto.
Yeah, he really does not like Jared Leto.
I'm not a huge fan of Jared Leto either. I used to like the guy after seeing Requiem for a Dream and stuff, but after seeing his Joker and then seeing 30 Seconds to Mars in concert, I don't know why I did that. It's just, I'm not a huge fan of the guy anymore. Although he is going to be in Morbius, so I guess he's in my camp again.
Right.
So maybe I should watch what I say.
I'm really hoping that he keeps Will Smith as Deadshot, because I love Will Smith's Deadshot. I'm just a big Will Smith fan. And you have to keep Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. Yeah, I know she's getting her own spin-off films. Maybe she'll sort of stay in that realm and not venture back into Suicide Squad. But please keep Will Smith as Deadshot, James Gunn. Please.
Yeah, I think that would be nice. I don't think he was bad as the character at all. We know that previously, before this news was announced, Gavin O'Connor was to direct this film. And I guess the draft that they submitted was a story that was a little bit too similar to the Birds of Prey story that's being worked on now.
Yeah, I mean, some people are saying that Margot Robbie sort of stole that storyline for her Birds of Prey film.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
She was just kind of like picking and choosing whatever she wanted to work on. She has a lot of power as Harley Quinn at Warner Brothers. It's kind of insane. Yeah, and apparently Gavin O'Connor, wasn't too happy with that. He went on to work on other projects, with Ben Affleck. But I mean, the storyline that was rumored for that seemed pretty cool. Who knows how much of that James Gunn will use? Apparently, Dave Bautista, whatever happens, is on board for this film.
Yeah,
just to work with James Gunn again.
I like Dave Bautista. He's kind of slightly unique out there in the actor world right now, except for maybe like The Rock or something like that. But I could totally see him playing a role in Suicide Squad as like Bane or something.
Yeah, totally. I've actually seen some like fan art of him as Bane. That would totally work.
Would he not be the perfect Bane?
He would be a fantastic
What country
Bane.
is Bane from? He's like from some Cuban made-up country, right?
Yeah, Santa Prisca.
And Dave Bautista is a Latin actor.
Yeah.
So it would just be perfect.
Yeah, I totally buy it. And if he doesn't get to do that, just give him like, some kind of third-rate DC villain that gets killed off. Just make him a cameo.
Solomon Grundy or something?
Maybe. I actually am a really big fan of Bane now. I could only see him in the Bane role. Batista for Bane.
Hashtag Batista for Bane. Let's get that started, guys.
So no matter what you tweet, just end it with Batista for Bane.
Yeah, it could be like an Instagram photo of your sandwich that you had for lunch or something like that. Just end it with Batista for Bane.
Yeah, but it's still probably quite a ways off.
Oh yeah, we're not getting this movie before 2020.
Yeah. But hopefully, everything pans out and we get a good Suicide Squad film. I'm excited.
Moving on to television news, I have to say with a heavy heart that it was announced this past week that the Iron Fist Netflix series has been canceled.
Just when it was getting good.
Like, I guess nobody saw it this past season because it was a pretty quick decision for them to cancel it so soon after the release of the second season.
And honestly, like, just thinking back, I've seen all of the Netflix shows on my Netflix account. And when Iron Fist came out, that thing was buried. Like,
it was.
I had to scroll quite a ways before I even found it in my recommended for you list.
It seems like a lot of people weren't confident in its success, and I guess it probably didn't have a lot of success on the streaming service, which is unfortunate because not only did it improve upon the first season, as you may find out if you listen to our Iron Fist Season 2 review, but it also ended on quite the large cliffhanger.
Huge. It was huge.
There was like a time jump at the end of Season 2, and we'll never get to know what happened between those two periods of time within that season.
Maybe. That may not entirely be true because they've said that just because his show is ending doesn't mean that he'll stop playing the character in other...
Well, yeah, that's true.
Other Netflix Marvel shows.
The official statement says that while the series on Netflix has ended, the immortal Iron Fist will live on. And according to Entertainment Weekly, that means that Finn Jones as Danny Rand is going to be appearing on other Netflix seasons. And I think it would be nice if they kind of spun this into a Heroes for Hire show.
Well, yeah, I think they said that they were going to possibly announce a third season for Luke Cage, like pretty soon here.
Right. Which I also want.
Yeah.
I really loved Luke Cage Season 2. I would like to see them continue that story. Do I think they could do that in a Heroes for Hire series? Yes.
Yeah, that would be great.
I don't know why I'm saying that, because really I'm torn both ways. I do want Luke Cage Season 3. I do want Heroes for Hire. I do want to continue seeing Iron Fist. It's wishful thinking on all fronts.
I just want Heroes for Hire because you can really put the focus on 4 characters. Not only Luke Cage and Iron Fist, but also Misty Knight and Colleen Wing, who are really standout characters in my opinion.
Right. Yeah, it's be sad to see them go too. It's kind of a bummer.
I think most of all, I'm going to miss Ward. It's like, what's going to happen to Ward? And I wanted him to, find his redemption and, like become a father and... I don't know.
Yeah, you're going to have to write your own Ward fanfic for this. He finds redemption, goes back, goes to his sponsor in AA, and marries her and raises the baby and lives happily ever after. There you go.
As a rich guy.
Yeah, I can buy it. I have no one else to blame but Scott Buck. He worked on the Inhumans television show that got canceled. He was the showrunner for the first season of Iron Fist, which was panned by both critics and fans, and now it's getting canceled. Season 2 really wasn't able to right all the wrongs from season 1. And it
really tried
most of its runtime trying to do so, as we mentioned in our Iron Fist season 2 review. I think we've said it before on the show, but fuck Scott Buck. Hashtag fuck Scott Buck.
Hashtag Batista for Bane. Hashtag fuck Scott Buck.
I mean, it's a bummer. We'll see what happens with these characters and any news that stems out of this regarding where they may appear in other series.
But this all kind of brings us to our question of the week.
Other than Iron Fist, what canceled Marvel or DC television show do you miss the most? And this could be live action, it could be animated show, just which one is no longer around anymore that you miss seeing.
Yeah, post your answer to our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or email us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com. We'll pick our favorite answer and draw that person a Dynamic Duel No Prize that we'll post to social media. And make sure it's duel as in D-U-E-L. I always wonder if people write like D-U-A-L or D-U-O. I don't know.
And that's a good point. I never really thought about that. Yeah, duel as in I challenge you to a duel. D-U-E-L.
Yeah.
All right.
Like the podcast name.
Yes.
So moving on, we got our first look at Ruby Rose as Batwoman. That was apparently a leak, but I find that hard to believe because it looks pretty final.
It looks like concept art, no? Is it a photograph?
I mean, it's a composite. Right? Uh-huh. So it's a photograph of her. It looks maybe like a costume test or something in a cityscape. Uh-huh. But like, I don't think you would really do that and then release such a high-res version if it was going to be a leak. Right. It looks really good. She looks exactly like she came off the page from the comics. Maybe except for the cape, which it's like a black that kind of fades into a red as opposed to just being a solid red.
Would you have preferred the red cape as opposed to the graded red?
Yeah, honestly, I would have. Because it's only red on the inside. So, like, if she needs to be stealthy, she just kind of, like, folds her cape. Sort of like Robin, you know?
Yeah.
So, I think their justification for not doing a solid red cape, or what's speculated to be their justification, doesn't really have much merit,
the CW, DC universe, the Arrowverse, they've been pretty spot on with their costumes.
They have a great set of costumes. Everything from Martian Manhunter, The Flash just got an updated costume, all the Legends of Tomorrow costumes. Yeah, they're all great costumes, and it's always fun to see them next to each other. Batwoman, of course, is going to be in this year's crossover event between Supergirl, Flash, and Arrow. I was kind of hoping that Black Lightning and Legends would be in there as well. The more the merrier. Right. You can't get enough of them. I think the crossover event was the only thing I watched from these shows from last year, and it was pretty cool.
That's right. You've kind of fallen off with a lot of these Arrowverse shows, right?
It's just too much TV. I would not have a life. I don't know how some people do it. But
speaking of DC television shows, you watched the first episode of Titans.
Yeah, I did. And it was surprisingly good.
Yeah? Was it as dark as I'm thinking it is?
It is very dark, and it is very different.
Is it Daredevil dark? Does it feel like Daredevil?
Yeah, it feels like a Netflix show, absolutely. I would say like Dick Grayson, the actor who plays him, Brendan Thwaites, does a pretty good job as Dick Grayson. He plays him really, really mature. Like, he looks young, but he's already a police detective, and he sort of has like the attitude of one. And, we get to see him don the Robin costume for the first time in like a year in the show. It's like his first time appearing in Detroit as Robin when the show starts. And it was a pretty cool scene. It was a brutal scene.
Does he kill people?
Holy shit. He must, honestly. He must. Because, like, there were shots from the trailer where, like, he grabs another guy's gun and he's, like, starts firing at other people, and it's smoky. He can't see that well. He doesn't have lenses. He can see just like everyone else. But there was one scene specifically where this guy, like, tries to get away. And it was the guy he was there specifically for. He tries to get away in a car, and Robin punches into the car, grabs the guy's face, slams the guy's face on the broken glass from the broken window.
Dang.
And then just like drags it around on the glass.
Oh, shit.
That's like, holy crap.
He pulled a Punisher on Jigsaw. That's what Punisher did to Jigsaw.
Sort of. But I mean, it wasn't against the glass. It was right up in the glass.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, it was pretty messed up. Raven was a pretty cool character. The actress who plays her, I was most concerned about. But she does a really good job. She plays a really credible, like young, innocent Rachel Roth, who's just kind of like pulled into this world that's just like really, really intense. You know, she knows that something's inside of her. The special effects like weren't anything to write home about, but there weren't too many of them in the first episode. Starfire, I think, is the biggest departure in terms of comparing the characters from the show to the comics.
That's not surprising to me.
It is completely different. This is not Starfire. That being said, Anna Diop does a really good job as this quote-unquote Corianders, they call her. Her character starts off like in Eastern Europe, and she has like dealings with the mob. I guess it must be Russia because the KG Beast, yet another iteration of the KG Beast, is in the show, and she has interactions with him. And I think that also kind of confirms that it's not set in the Arrowverse.
Yeah.
Because they already have their own actor
or the
playing,
DCEU.
Yeah, playing those characters. But she does kick quite a bit of ass, Starfire.
Yeah.
Because she wakes up with that amnesia, and she has no idea who she is or what she is. It's almost like a Jason Bourne kind of take on the character.
Interesting.
It is very interesting.
I don't know if I like that or if I really like that.
It works. Surprisingly. I didn't think it would, but it works.
Okay.
And at the end of the episode, she finds out that like the person she's trying to track down is Rachel Roth, is Raven. So I'm sure she'll do that in the next episode. The episode ends with just a brief cameo by Beast Boy.
Oh, really?
He breaks into a video game store as a tiger and steals some video games. And then like he escapes and he scares a security guard and he gets all happy because he has this video game, and then he runs off, and that's the end of the episode.
That's so weird.
It is weird.
Can you confirm that the reason why Robin left Batman was because Batman was a killer?
No, that wasn't clarified at all.
No.
The reasoning he gave was that he didn't want to become like Batman.
Okay. A non-killer?
No, I think just like he described him as, a hero who solved everything with his fists, just someone who's like really intense. And, that's kind of like the same reason in the comics.
Yeah.
Dick Grayson is a brighter character than Bruce Wayne. And he always has been.
Brighter as in tone, not as in intelligence.
Right. So, yeah, he's not as dark of a character. So I bought that justification when he was explaining it to someone else, and kind of ironic in the way he was telling it. Or there was a sense of like dramatic irony, and that who his former partner was that he's talking about from Gotham City. Because he was a transfer from Gotham City to Detroit.
But this Robin sounds more violent than any other iteration of Robin we've ever seen.
Yeah, absolutely.
So isn't that a contradiction?
He's, I think, trying to step away from the darkness.
But he just can't help himself?
He does what he needs to get done, to get the job done,
Interesting.
Overall, I'm intrigued. I'm surprised was written by Jeff Johns. I think it was written by Jeff Johns because it's very, very different from the comic lore. But, I'm definitely checking it out week to week, regardless, because I'm paying for the damn thing, But I'm looking forward to the next episode. I'll say that.
Is Jeff Johns less good of an adapter of comics material as we may think he is?
I don't know. I wouldn't say this is a good adaptation of the source material, but I'm not ready to say it's a bad show yet, because it was a good pilot.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. Well, that does it for all the news this week. Let's go ahead and get into our review of Constantine, City of Demons.
All right, so as we mentioned earlier, this film was originally a web series on CW Seed that Warner Brothers collected into a feature-length film with like 20 minutes, I think, 15 to 20 minutes of additional footage. Yeah, and if you haven't seen that, CW is actually airing tonight, as of this recording, like in a few hours.
So it'll do you a little good now.
Right.
To it.
A Constantine special just dedicated to Constantine called Constantine the Legend Continues. And I think really it's a reintroduction to Matt Ryan's Constantine character for those who may have seen the TV show that was on NBC that was canceled and need that reintroduction for, Legends of Tomorrow, because that special will also include a sneak peek at Legends of Tomorrow. I don't know how much of the footage they're going to show from City of Demons, because again, this thing is super, super rated R.
Yeah.
Super violent.
And it's an hour and a half long, and I think the special is less than an hour long if you count commercials.
And it includes like a face-to-face interview with Matt Ryan, the actor who played Constantine, will play Constantine in Legends of Tomorrow, and of course does the voice work for Constantine. He is Constantine, essentially. And he does a fantastic job. But so if you haven't checked out the series or that special or this film, just heads up, this is a spoiler review.
Right. Yes.
So, make sure you've done one of those things, I guess. I'm not sure, again, how much they're going to show on CW, but there's an ample number of ways to access this story, I guess.
Right. Yeah, but the most hardcore one is the one that we're going to review right now.
Right.
The rated R animated film.
Yeah. Again, it's a hard watch, so much so that, I think it's a good film, or, at least a well-written one. I don't actually think I'd recommend it to anyone who doesn't have a stomach for extreme, macabre violence.
Right.
I mean, it's animated violence, but it's still like really gruesome, like hellish imagery.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen quite a few horror movies in my time, and there were moments where I had to kind of avert my eyes from what I was seeing on the screen.
For this film?
Yes.
Yeah. But, honestly, like that kind of shock factor was pretty much exactly what I was expecting for this film.
Really?
Not only considering like prior DC animated films that we've reviewed, like just this year, like the Suicide Squad Hell to Pay film. That was pretty violent. But when you're dealing with the character of John Constantine, who had a long-running comic series titled Hellblazer in DC's mature Vertigo imprint, you're going to see some fucked up shit.
Yeah. It's horrific, not in a like psychological suspense sort of way, which are my favorite horror movies, but in a straight-up gore sort of way.
Were you surprised by it?
I was, honestly. I thought it was going to be a little bit more psychologically terrifying. But, it's just seeing some of the stuff that they were showing here. Like, I've seen anime films, like what would be considered gory anime films that were less gory than this movie.
Yeah. Personally, I think it fit the film's narrative.
It did.
And tone.
It did.
So, I think the violence worked for the most
demons
part.
are supposed to be grisly. And when you are seeing this no-holds-barred violence, it just serves to make you terrified of the demons themselves.
Yeah. It's like, like those old classical paintings of hell.
Depictions of hell and stuff, like all that torture.
Yeah, and all the torture. It was exactly like straight from there, just like with a modern twist.
Right.
I guess.
Yeah, I would say that. Yep. I'll say that this film was better than the live-action Keanu Reeves film. There was a moment there where we were seriously debating whether or not we should review this film at this time or just do the live-action version that came out in 2005, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm actually really glad that we chose to review this animated film that came out now, because not only is it more timely, it's actually a better movie than Keanu Reeves' version.
And I say that with a lot of surprise for myself, because I love that Constantine film.
Yeah.
Like, I know it has its detractors, and I think I've said this before on this podcast, but that's a really good Constantine film. Or I should say it's a really good film. This is a really good Constantine film. It's very faithful to the source material, which is one of the reasons I really liked it.
Overall, I did enjoy it. I did find it mostly joyless. There's very little humor to be found in this film.
It's not a fun film to watch.
No. I think last week when we were reviewing the Venom film, and I had mentioned that with a character like Venom, you almost want a certain tongue-in-cheek element to be incorporated into the narrative so that it doesn't become a straight-up horror film.
Right.
This is a prime example of the kind of movie that you get when you're dealing with this dark subject matter without any sort of tongue-in-cheek element. It's straight up horrific, which is an interesting thing to explore because you're not going to get a lot of that in mainstream movie making.
Right.
So in that regard, this Constantine movie is novel. I appreciate it for being unique and different within the genre more than anything else.
Yeah, I agree that this probably couldn't be made in live action, or it wouldn't be allowed to be made by the studio because, the theatrical releases have so much more exposure. You can't get away with as much because, people would cry outrage at what they were forced to see, I guess.
Yeah. I think they have an acceptable level of violence within certain films, but you mostly find that those movies don't play 100% straight, or they have a certain humor element to them to kind of make everything else palatable and make it not a completely dour experience.
This didn't really have that. But it had the benefit of being an animated film so that you didn't quite get so depressed while watching it. Yeah. The violence, it wasn't the biggest thing that stood out to me. I think the star of this show was the story, was the script. It's a well-crafted, buttoned-up, smart script with plenty of twists that I think nailed the whole like occult detective aspect and arrogance of Constantine.
Oh, definitely.
And I'm not surprised that it was so buttoned up, considering that David S. Goyer was an executive producer.
That's right.
Batman Begins and Blade are two fantastic scripts. And this film, it's similar in that it's kind of an origin story, or at least like it uses the same flashback method to tell the main character's origin. David Goyer didn't write this, but I can almost guarantee that he came up with the story because he's just a good story guy.
For the most part, yeah. He also did direct Blade Trinity, so...
I mean, he's a better writer than director, for sure.
Yeah.
The film was actually written by J.M. DeMatteis.
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it. But, he's a pretty famous comic writer who's written issues of Justice League Dark, a team that Constantine has been a part of. Mm-hmm. And then he's also famously written like Justice League International, and he wrote the Kraven's Last Hunt storyline in the Spider-Man comics.
He did? Really?
Yeah.
Oh. Why didn't I know that? Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's a pretty famous writer.
He's been around for a while, then.
Yeah, he has, for sure. And his story, he's just a good writer. Despite the stakes, I think it's a pretty intimate narrative that really focuses on only a few characters, but all of those characters have arcs with like serious, lasting consequences.
Yeah.
Let's go into the character breakdown.
Okay.
So, starting off with John Constantine, voiced by Matt Ryan.
Fantastic.
Also the live-action Constantine. Just a great Constantine. It's really hard for me to picture anyone else now as that character.
It's hard for me to picture an American Constantine. Like, you think of Keanu Reeves, and it's almost like that's
not Constantine.
It's not Constantine.
Right?
And, me not really even being aware of who Constantine was by the time that 2004 movie came out, I was completely fine with Keanu Reeves as Constantine. But now I understand the outrage that fans had at the time that movie came out at the fact that he wasn't British, because he is so British.
It's a pretty big part of the character.
Yeah, London.
Yeah, exactly. So, Constantine is usually depicted as, like this manipulative, selfish character. And those traits were on display in this film, like when he conned Bicantlicutli, that Aztec death god.
Yes.
But, like for a majority of this film, he was just trying to help his friend. He knew that he was the reason Nergal went after Chaz.
Right.
And it was also cool to like see Constantine's motivation behind becoming a master of the occult. Mm-hmm. Seeing him in the Ravenscar mental health facility, which is where the film opens up, he's just broken. It really helped you sympathize with him and gave credibility to when another little girl's life was at stake, why he would go around making deals with devils.
Right, exactly. That whole Newcastle situation, they alluded to it a lot within the first 10 minutes of the show, and then kind of really showed you what happened in this defining moment in Constantine's past that kind of fucked him up. And it was horrifying.
It was really bad. It was really bad. And, they alluded to it a lot in the live-action television show as well.
Oh, really?
I think you saw like one or two episodes.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
I watched the whole thing. And one of the biggest tragedies of that show being canceled is that you never really got to fully like understand what happened at Newcastle.
Uh-huh.
But this doesn't take place in the live action universe.
Okay.
But it was cool for them to bring up Newcastle again and for us to finally see. And it was worse than I ever imagined. It was so bad.
Yeah, that was the first gory scene of the movie where I was like, oh, fuck, what are we watching?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It was just so tragic with everyone involved, all because of John's arrogance.
Right.
It was a really, really intense scene.
He summoned a demon without performing the binding spell, I guess, to give him control over the demon.
He was too arrogant to know what he didn't know, and he didn't know that he was supposed to do that.
Right.
So
he summoned too powerful of a demon.
Right, exactly. Yeah. He didn't know what he was doing. His whole arc is really about him forgiving himself for what he did.
Yes.
And it's not a complete victory by the end of the film at all, but he does learn that what he's doing here, specifically in this film, is forgiveness enough. He explicitly says that,
yes. It's great because he's so often depicted as a character without a heart.
Yeah, he could come across as apathetic, absolutely, for sure. Like in Justice League Dark, where he's like, I don't want to be involved.
His apathy was a big catalyst for the events of Justice League Dark. And that's almost the opposite of what we got here.
Sort of, but it's still the same character. He's a wonderfully complex character.
There are certain things that he will not have any apathy for, and that's his close friend Chaz and his family.
Chaz, who was famously played by Shia LaBeouf in the Keanu Reeves Constantine film, he's very different here in this film. It's very much more comic accurate. I would say he's the most tragic character in this story. I feel really bad for him.
I do, yes.
Everything bad that happens to him is a result of his friendship with Constantine. You know, he didn't ask to be involved in Newcastle and suffer PTSD from that event that, you know, ended his marriage. And, you know, Nergal ended up using his daughter to get to Constantine. And in the end, Chaz was forced to sacrifice the most, you know, giving up the one light of his life, as he described it, his daughter.
Right. Well, he didn't give up his daughter. He sacrificed their love for him, basically.
Right. Yeah. He kind of learned the hard way that there are life-altering consequences to having reckless friends, in a way.
Yeah, that kind of sucks.
He was a good guy. He was a really good guy. Like, the few brief moments that I guess could be considered comic relief came from him. When Constantine was like, well, I didn't see you, like, pull out your wallet for this car. And he's like, oh, here's my wallet right here. And he flips off Constantine, you know, and just like little bits like that really make him human. And just knowing that he's a family guy, knowing that he has like the utmost faith in Constantine to save his family.
Yeah.
His lesson that he learned is almost like some kind of like twisted, like Twilight Zone kind of moral lesson. It's like, you got what you wanted, but not in the way that you wanted it.
Right.
It's almost like a monkey paw kind of situation.
Yeah.
It's pretty messed up. I feel really bad. But in the end, his daughter's alive. So it's bittersweet. Bittersweet for sure.
Yeah.
Nergal / Barul, I guess. This is as hellish a character as you can get.
He's probably the most evil villain I've ever seen in any superhero anything.
Yes, absolutely. When we're first introduced to him in the flashback, the filmmakers showed you like right away how violent and gruesome this character was.
Yeah, he's chopping faces in half.
Like not at the neck, like in the middle of the face.
Yeah, he's ripping spines from backs. He's ripping heads off.
It's ridiculous. It's over the top. It's over the top for sure. You know, Newcastle was every bit as traumatizing as the characters have always hinted, for sure. And, you know, not just at Newcastle, but the Instrom Mansion, you know, where Nergal was posing as the demon Barul. Holy crap.
Yeah, the dude's taking baths in liquefied remains of human bodies.
Right. I think that the thing that really got to me, because, like, you know, when he takes Constantine to the party where the demons are, like, torturing the still live humans.
Right.
You know, there's, like, people, like, strung up on musical instruments, and, like, demons are using another guy's, like, brains for drums.
Yeah, and there you see brain matter just splatting all over.
And then, like, bats are flying out of a guy's ass.
Yeah, that was
like,
nuts. I didn't expect to see
I was like, what?
Nudity in this.
I know, for sure. But the thing that really got me was the movie screen that was playing.
Yes.
That was twisted.
That kind of stuck in my mind the way the best horror films do. This imagery that lingers with you.
Yeah.
The movie scenes were what lingered with me.
Yeah, absolutely.
You see a girl spiked to a raft going over a waterfall, you know?
Or it was like some kind of like acid pool. I don't know. It was black and white because it was like a 1920s vintage kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then like the marionettes who like stab that couple to death. Just horrible.
Well, they
horrible
slash
imagery.
the guy's throat, and then like it zooms in, and then the marionette is stabbing this girl in her neck, and he does it like 7 times, like prison shank style.
Yeah,
that was the part where I actually had to look away for a bit because I was like, I don't need to see that.
I know, like you look away, then you look back, and it's still happening. You're like, ah,
yeah, it's crazy.
It's disturbing.
And then you have the monster. There was like the third silent film where it was the lovers and the monster was biting the girl's head off.
Yeah.
But he didn't just bite her head off, you know, like Venom movie style where you barely notice it. He grabbed her head and there was like pulling, you know, like snapping and tendons.
Yeah. I mean, and Constantine gets thrown into that same screen. That was weird. That was really weird.
It was a scene that I think absolutely is not in the web series because after the party scene ends, they're back in the pool of human bodies.
Right. Yeah, I agree. You're probably right.
I think it was like a detour that the movie took to add that extra, you know, nudity and violence and shock value to make it rated R and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Later on, when we find out that Barul was just like a ruse,
that was crazy.
I'm not entirely sure that was 100% necessary for the story, but it definitely like upped the sinister factor of the character.
It was a good twist.
It was definitely.
Sometimes a twist is just good for the sake of being a good twist.
When we found out, I definitely was like, oh, damn, it's Negral.
Yeah.
We know all about Negral.
Yeah, it's the same demon that created that horrible event in Newcastle all those years ago.
Yep. Yeah. And, you know, which we're familiar with.
And the clues were there because Barul, his body looked like a stitched up human carcass kind of thing. So it made sense.
Really
it was
twisted
just a costume.
Character. Really twisted character. Yeah, a costume. Exactly. Moving on to Angela, the Queen of Angels, not too much to say about her. Like, she added a good amount of mystery to the film. Like, it's like we didn't know who was following and helping Constantine for like a majority of the film.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're teased by like the line Queen of Angels at the very beginning. And, you know, that's it until she reveals herself in that bar to Constantine.
She is a manifestation of the collective consciousness of the city of Los Angeles.
Exactly.
Which I thought was a bizarre concept. I don't like the idea of a city as an abstract being. It just makes no sense to me.
I thought that totally worked. It's Constantine. Of course they would have a character like that. You know?
I don't know. Does that mean that every like city, town, village, they all have collective consciousness beings?
I think if it has enough like psychic energy, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
I don't know.
And she wasn't like necessarily a being. Like she sort of possessed other people.
Yeah.
So she wasn't like her own thing. I don't think. When she was the female kind of figure, she definitely added like the requisite amount of sex for these DC animated films.
Oh yeah,
especially a rated R.
I wasn't
DC animated
expecting
film.
Constantine to have sex in this movie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, those. She kind of like raped him.
I don't like cartoon sex. It's just awkward to me.
It is super awkward, especially like watching it with your wife.
Like, I'm all for like live action movies that have sex in them. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. But when it's animated, I just feel creepy. I don't know. Maybe it's because I still associate cartoons so much
with being a kid.
With being a kid, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just weird.
It was uncomfortable watching. But I guess the last major character to talk about would be Nightmare Nurse.
Yeah. She started out as my least favorite character.
You know, she's a fairly new character in the comics, so I don't know too much about her or what she does.
Yeah.
But I agree. I do know that I didn't like her at first when Constantine like first summoned her.
Well, she seemed very one-dimensional.
Yeah.
Kind of like male fantasy. She comes and she's wearing like this slutty nurse outfit, you know, but purple. And she's like, I just got done having a three-way with a dryad and a nymph or something like that.
It was just too sexual. It was just too sexual.
Yeah, I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
Dial it down.
Exactly.
What is this? You know, be less one-dimensional. But over time, I think she did kind of develop where you see moments where she's like forces Renee's memory of Newcastle out of her.
Yeah.
And then lies about it. And then like when she talks to Renee about Renee's love for Chaz.
Yeah.
And she's like, I've never experienced that. And then that last part where she offered to reduce Renee's pain over the decision to take her daughter off of life support. She was almost throughout the course of this film developing emotion.
She's a demon, right? So yeah, she was learning what it's like to be human.
Yeah.
You know, a mother, a wife. That came across, you know, for sure.
Yeah.
For me, I think like it wasn't until like I was reminded that she was a demon, which I knew from the comics because I've read a few Justice League Dark comics with her.
Yeah,
that she started to grow those layers of depth. The sexualization was an act of sorts because she's well versed in the lusty pleasures of the flesh, but not real familial love. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of like what she learns throughout the course of this story.
Yeah,
pretty fascinating.
Pretty interesting character in the end.
Yeah, I agree. So just to go through a breakdown of the film and go through some highlights. The film starts off at the Ravenscar Mental Institution. I really liked that moment because it kind of shows that Constantine is sort of addicted to magic in a way. Like it wasn't a rehab center or anything like that, but he needed that to prevent something like what happened at Newcastle from happening again. Yeah. You understand, as traumatic as the event was, he recognized it was a result of his own inexperience, so he had to get better. Right. And it was like this great, like unselfish motivation for the character, who again is normally depicted as
kind of stemming
selfish.
Out of arrogance, though, because he realizes he fucked up, and it may be his whole motivation for continuing down this path of being an occultist may be due to his refusal to accept that he made such a big mistake.
Yeah. So, the whole Ravenscar thing was a flashback. The film really starts when John wakes up from a dream about Los Angeles, and he finds physical manifestations of his inner demons just crawling around his room. They were called psychisms, and they looked like tiny little Constantine goblins. They were kind of cute.
They were kind of cute.
They're pretty cool. I liked them.
But he was like smashing them just like in his hand and stepping on them. I'm still trying to, I guess, understand what purpose they served. I guess Angela was going through his subconscious and unconscious mind.
Right.
And I guess somehow manifested these psychisms.
Yeah, they were split off from him.
But how and why?
That's a good question because they do serve a sort of purpose later on. Yeah. And that they're kind of his little mini soldiers. Mm-hmm. But they're not the most effective soldiers
at all.
And when they are used, it turns out that was just part of a con against Nigral.
Right.
So I don't know. All I know is that they're cute and they're cool and I like them. So it doesn't bother me too much that they didn't quite weave their way into the narrative as tightly as they should have. So Constantine examines Trisha's aura at the hospital with the help of Nightmare Nurse and finds out that a demon has Trisha's soul in Los Angeles. So Constantine and Chaz fly there while Nightmare Nurse and Renee stay with Trisha. Mm-hmm. The scene of them landing in Los Angeles is pretty heavy with foreshadowing. Constantine warns Chaz about how there are no happy endings and that there's always a price to pay. Chaz, the optimist, is convinced that Constantine can save the day and save Trisha.
Yeah.
And that there's no price too high to save her. And
by the end of the film, he learns that wasn't the case.
Right, exactly.
And I think you're right. On the plane, it is a heavy case of foreshadowing. And I think this is the first instance we see that Constantine is aware that he may have to use this curse.
He has that plan in mind already.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's just warning him.
Constantine and Chaz, make their way to the address that they were given. And that's, when things get really effed up. They learned that the house is an extension of hell. It's run by the demon Barul, and, he wants Constantine to take out his 5 other competitors in Los Angeles in exchange for Trisha's soul, because this hell on Earth is like a business for him. Constantine tracks down the old Aztec god of death, Mictlantecuhtli,
who used to be worshipped in Los Angeles, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. Or near there.
Yeah.
And he cons him into killing all 5 demons in one fell swoop in an abandoned church.
Yeah, he traps everybody in the church using Chaz to lay down holy water around the church. I thought that was a pretty good trap. And it was cool just to see this Aztec god fight these demons.
Yeah, it was a cool action scene for sure. And just to see Constantine just
stand there with his
arms crossed, just letting it all unfold, just letting his enemies defeat each other. It was kind of awesome. It was classic Constantine. Yeah. Really
and
cool.
In the end, the demons were more of a match for the Aztec god than the Aztec god thought they would be.
Yeah.
And so he's near death and begs Constantine to take him back to his feeding ground below the slaughterhouse.
Yeah.
And Constantine's like, there's nothing more pathetic than a god who begs. And then he kills him.
I was like, damn! That was pretty crazy. Because Mictlantecuhtli was feeding off of the death from the slaughterhouse. And he figured that by feeding off the death of these demons who are more powerful, he was going to gain all this power, but he didn't figure that he was going to get killed.
Yeah, in the end, he got his ass beat a little bit too much.
He did. It was a good fight, though. It was put up a good fight. So Negrel goes back on his word once they do defeat the 5 demons, and he continues to hold Trish's soul ransom so that Constantine will continue to work for him. Mm-hmm. So Constantine and Chaz kind of split ways because Chaz is really pissed off, as he should be.
Yeah.
Constantine and Chaz, they do come up with a plan to block Negrel's access to the comatose souls in LA, that hospital room, to draw the demon away from his house and all the protections that he has within it and all the spells.
Yeah.
So Chaz and the psychisms distract Nergal as Constantine summons a spell to con Nergal into thinking that all of hell is emerging in Los Angeles.
Yeah, so he'll have a whole lot more competition than just 5 demons.
Yeah, and when that scene was happening, I was like, really? Constantine's not that powerful
to summon all of hell? And
I was really surprised by that, actually. But, it turns out to not be real anyway.
And Nergal knew that.
Yeah, he did. He sees through the con. So Constantine, with the consent of Chaz, resorts to Plan B and channels Trisha's and Renee's love through Nergal, who had been keeping Trisha locked within his heart to prevent any damage being done to him.
Right.
And, with the help of Nightmare Nurse, he uses a spell called the Camdever Curse to defeat Nergal.
Yeah.
Trisha wakes up from her coma, and Constantine explains to Chaz in an LA diner that he had to use up all of Trisha's and Renee's love for him in that spell, so they could no longer remember him.
Well, he didn't just use up their love for Chaz. He also used up Chaz's love for Constantine.
Right. Which I think was good of Constantine to do. It was good for the story, because Constantine sacrificed something as well.
Yes. Sacrificed his friendship.
Right. At the end, the only one that John has left to keep him company are his own inner demons.
Right. And that was pretty cute.
That was cute.
Constantine, he's walking away from this real somber moment where he has to say goodbye forever to his friend.
Yeah.
Who also has to say goodbye forever to his family.
Yeah.
And he's walking down LA, and all of a sudden this cute little demon guy comes running up to him and he's like, "Hey, wait!" In that goblin British accent kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's just hilarious. And a really great way to end it, I think.
Yeah, especially because Angela was there too to say thank you and to promise to help Chaz find a new home, essentially.
I wonder what she'll do. I wonder if she'll make Chaz like a famous movie star or like a producer or something like that.
She could do whatever she wants, I guess.
Yeah.
It's a really good ending.
There's a great question that was asked at the end of this by Angela to Constantine regarding everyone who had lost their memories of each other, including Chaz, forgetting his family and vice versa. She says, is it better to be the one who remembers or better to be the one who forgets? And I thought that was a very fascinating philosophical question.
It was for sure.
Yeah. I almost feel like it's worse to be the one who remembers the relationship.
Yeah.
And have it depart. Because you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
It's almost like living with someone with Alzheimer's.
You can move on, if you don't remember.
Right.
Whereas if you do remember, it's harder.
Right.
And Constantine, it's great for the character, I think, because he is like this tragic kind of hero.
Tortured soul, kind of.
Yeah, very much a tortured soul, not only with Newcastle, but everything he does and all the times he has to screw over his friends and stuff like that.
And himself.
Yeah, he's also affected by it. But he's sort of, I guess, strong enough to do that. So, good ending. Great ending. I think if they didn't have that ending, if it just would have ended with, Nergal dead and, everything would have gone, big happy family once again.
Happy ending, yeah.
It wouldn't have been as impactful. It wouldn't have been as good overall, I think.
Yeah, I absolutely
Those last like 5-10 minutes go a long way in my rating for this film, at least, which I give it 4 stars.
Yeah, it was really good. I also give it 4 stars. I think if you have the stomach for it, if you like Constantine as a character, I would absolutely recommend this film. Like I said earlier, it's a great Halloween film. It was the best out of the horror films that I watched with my friends that day. And we saw, what did we see? We saw Oculus, we saw VHS 2, a bunch of decent horror films, but none of them had the soul that this one did.
That's awesome. I love hearing that. That's great. Go DC. Go DC. But that does it for this review. If you have seen it, if you have seen the film, or if you've seen the web series and know a little bit about what was left and what wasn't, reach out to us. Let us know. I'm fascinated to know. I don't think the web series is on CW Seed anymore. I think they pulled it, but let us know what you thought of the film.
Yeah, and you can reach out to us via social media on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, and you can find links to all of our accounts by visiting dynamicduel.com. On the site, you could also find a link to our merch store where you could buy t-shirts of artwork that Jonathan has done for the No Prizes.
Yeah, so if you've seen the No Prizes and you're like, oh, that would make a fantastic shirt, chances are there's a shirt for it.
Right.
So, if you've been listening to us for a while, you know that we like to pair our reviews with dual episodes and vice versa. So our next episode is going to be Constantine versus Brother Voodoo.
That one's really exciting to me. Honestly, I've been doing a lot of research and reading a lot of Brother Voodoo comics over these past few weeks because I didn't really know too much about him, but I knew that he would be a good match for Constantine. And since reading these issues, I'm really looking forward to how dark and cool this duel is going to be next week.
I think it'll be pretty cool. Yeah, for sure. A good Halloween duel.
Definitely. So yeah, look forward to that next week. Don't forget to rate, review, share, subscribe this show. Extremely grateful for Tim Brown for his shout out on Facebook last week. That's what we like to see from our listeners. He gave this long post recommending our podcast to his friends. And if you're inclined to do the same, we super appreciate it.
Oh, and before I forget, right after you're done listening to this episode, make sure you check out the Blast from Our Past podcast. I recently did a guest spot there where we reviewed the 1989 Batman film, the Swamp Thing TV series, and we did a fan casting of Justice League Dark. It's a pretty fun episode, so check that out.
Yeah, that does it for this episode, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
Up and away,
true believers.